Welcome to episode 66 of the Bladeology podcast. We are happy to announce our new sponsor, the New Jersey Steel Baron, supplier of all good things steel, high carbon, stainless, tool steel, CPM, laminate steel, squared rounds, powdered steel, and other greatness, including water jet servicing and now added to the amazing list, surface grinding. Hit up the Steel Baron at NewJerseySteelBaron.com. They're friendly, easy to work with, and accessible. You'll see them at all the great shows or call them directly at 973-949-4140. Gavin, is there anything you don't want me to ask you?
Fuck, not that I can think of.
All right, we're going to jump into this like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. This is your host, Jeremiah Burbank with PVK. I'm here with my longtime running co-host, Nick from NCC Knives. Nick, how we doing?
Great. Doing
Awesome.
this last week, doing it this week.
There we
It
go.
starts becoming a thing.
See, we're getting on a schedule. I'm excited about it. And this week we've got we're on with a guest, Mr. Gavin Hawk. How we doing?
Fantastic.
Hell yeah! All right. So we're not really, but we're sort of just getting back from Blade Show. Catch up is always catch up. So we're just getting back into things. But Gavin, let's start there. How was your Blade Show? How was tell us how it went.
Blade Show was fantastic this year. I think it was one of our best shows. It was fantastic. We sold out the first day, technically. Come to find out, we actually had a couple of knives stashed away that we found the next day. So we sold those instantly on Saturday morning. But yeah, it was great. We had people, rush to the table. Sold almost everything in the first couple hours, and then throughout the day, sold the rest of it. Lots of interest. It was pretty neat because Serge didn't make it, which sucked because Serge is my buddy and we share. We're right next to each other. But he wasn't able to make it last minute, so we just took over his booth. So we had 2 booths, plenty of room. We set up a little couch, spread out a little bit, so that was nice. We brought way more merch than we normally bring, and I was pretty nervous about that. Shows we don't really sell a lot of merch, but God, we sold a lot of merch at this last show. Not really sure why, but that was cool. That was nice to, see everybody wearing Hawk Knives shirts around the show. Everybody was super excited. So, but yeah, overall, it was a great show. It reminded me of our first knife show, my dad and I. So that was the Eugene show, I think in '94. And I don't remember how many knives we brought, but we sold 14 of our pony knives. And they were like $450, something like that. And so, yeah, we did the Eugene show, sold 14 of those. And for us, that was, totally amazing. So I remember we went out and had a big fancy steak dinner. So we split a prime rib. On top of the world, selling some fixed blades at a Eugene knife show. So that was pretty neat to kind of see the whole, the full circle of where we started and then how well we did it at Blade Show this last year. So it's been great.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now I know it's a little different from everybody, from makers to dealers to whoever, but personally, I get this huge anxiety dopamine rush just headed up to the show, and then you get there and you're setting up and it's exciting, And you're saying this show was a lot like your first show. So I mean, in the way that you sold out and it was fun, it was a little chaotic, but like you got the job done. Is that sort of the similar sensation there?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I am, yeah, I'm almost tired of doing knife shows, and so we do 3 shows a year right now. So we had Blade show in Texas, and then we had like 2 months to get ready for Blade show in Atlanta. So it's just stressful trying to, we're trying to fulfill orders that we already have, and then it's like, okay, we got to stop that and start preparing for the show. And you never really know when to stop uh, selling, knives that are already sold, or delivering knives that are already sold. So yeah, it's just a little stressful getting, trying to get enough product ready for the show. And I bring a pretty big crew with me, so just organizing all of that, getting it all ready, getting the booth set up in time, which we did not do. You guys probably remember that quite well.
Yes.
Because
What happened? How did
Yes,
the
I
couch
do.
come to be?
Yeah, how did the couch come
yeah,
to fruition?
well, so I was gonna be on time for the show this year. Normally I'm not. Normally I'm late, but I was in my
No.
Uber and I was ready to get there just at 10 o'clock, and I got a text saying we didn't have an air pump. It didn't come with our couch, so instead I had to go to Walmart, track down an air pump, and then I think I got to the show at like 10:30, and we didn't have power, so we borrowed your guys' power, and we were just right out in the middle of the aisle in front of your guys' booth, blowing up this obnoxious couch.
Meanwhile,
I think
everyone's
I remember
staring
you
at
guys
me.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys enjoyed it. I know you
Oh,
did.
that was
Uh,
fun. Boy, that was fun.
yeah,
Scarred.
and then lifting this big air couch over into our booth. But we were quick, kind
Yeah,
of.
I would
Thanks for letting us use your power.
yeah. I would say that looking at that situation, it was a little bit of a calamity, but I think it was certainly worth the calamity to have the couch in the booth because you guys had the extra space, right? You had Serge's booth. Why not spread out a little bit? So that was a little weird, but I think in the end, it's the couch came in handy. Your mom was there. I know she enjoyed sitting on the couch. Having visitors at the booth, that was neat. People got to sit on the couch. Yeah, probably never do that
Yeah,
again.
it was fantastic. It makes me want to get 2 booths. I told Serge that he wasn't welcome back,
Nice, good. Kick him out.
but
Yep.
he's a pretty big guy, and he just laughed at me.
Okay.
So we are thinking this year, or this next year, we'll figure out a way to kind of combine our booths a little bit, so we have more of a shared space. And then he can have his table right in front of his area. We can have a table, and then yeah, a shared space of some sort, maybe a couch. I don't know if we'll have enough room, but it was really nice having that space. Yeah, and then a friend comes by, and they can come into the booth, sit down, hang out. We had a coffee table, so we could set things on it and talk about knives and show each other stuff. So that was really nice.
Hmm. I definitely the larger booth with the couch sort of in the extra area. It definitely is a little more like a social hangout spot, I think, than just a regular like a 10 by 10 is a little tricky to do that in. But like the double booth, there's space. It's like stop by. Like it's like a little micro apartment over there.
Yeah, it's a lot more inviting for sure. And again, I bring a big crew, so in a 10 by 10, we're just cramped. We just don't have enough space for everything. So we'll see. We'll see what Serge agrees to next year. We'll kind of maybe we'll get there the day before, so we have a little more time to set it up, play with things.
Cool. Okay, and this year, right? So you had some collaboration deadlocks that Serge and yourself worked on.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a while. I'll send Serge some inlays, and he'll finish them. He'll antique them. Uh, this year and last year, he soldered on some. I'm gonna say this wrong. I think it's Muki, but the Japanese uh, thingies that they wrap into the
Very
handles.
good. Knife maker.
Yeah,
Very good.
technical terms. Yes, can't know everything.
That's true. Yeah, no, the
But
Manukis. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like they wrap them into the handles of swords and knives, and Serge is really into that stuff. He's got a huge drawer filled with these things, and he's of course been putting them on his knives. But they, I don't know, they just add a cool element to it, and of course it brings his style into the deadlock, makes him really unique, one of a kind. And then they're real antiques. Like these were on Japanese swords that are a couple hundred years old. So it gives them really cool character, and uh, so we had a few of those that we lotteried off, and we had one auction piece that way. And so it's cool. It's a nice way to bring some variety to the deadlock.
Yeah, no, I know I dig it. I like seeing them right there. It definitely it turns it into sort of like a one of a kind piece, and then you get the sort of the classic, the then and the now. So you get a little antique history in with a sort of a very modern knife design. So I think that's a nice little clash there. It definitely adds a lot to the knife. So speaking of Surge, so you showed me you had one of the new Surge models. I totally forget the name, but it incorporates your lock that you guys had previously used, I believe, on the Orbit.
Yeah, correct. So his new knife is the Rook, which I didn't I didn't do too much on that. So it's all his design, his style, but it incorporates the hawk lock and the toggle detent. And Serge had called me up, and he was just tired of making liner locks. He's tired of making detent. He just wanted to make something new and different, and he wanted to make it in house. So I kind of talked him into using the hawk lock and the toggle detent. He was a little reluctant because a lot of his stuff is pretty simple, really artistic, and does cool stuff with the designs. But when it comes to the mechanisms, he just doesn't really want to get too involved, and he thinks that I'm overly complicated. But
You
ultimately, I
never.
was able. Yeah, I know. Uh, but I was ultimately able to like talk him into it, and I had some new ideas on how I was going to make that toggle detent, and so he prototyped the idea and kind of troubleshot some of the issues with it and got it working, and it turned out fantastic. Um, so that's going to be just his thing. He'll be making those and selling them as customs. We are going to start doing some more orbits. Of course, I've been saying that for a long time, but we are getting a lot closer to that. First, I'm going to introduce my own Hawklock version. And I did have a prototype at the show. I just kind of had it, tucked away in my pocket, showing it to a few select people, get a little bit of feedback on it. And we're taking that feedback now and incorporating it into the next prototype. But I'm really hoping to be introducing that really soon. We're currently remodeling the shop, adding a bunch more space. I have two levels in my shop, but the upstairs hasn't really been utilized. The rooms aren't finished. But I'm going to be taking all of my assembly, moving it upstairs into one big room. Right now, it's like we do a little bit of assembly in this room, we do a little bit here, and then we've got a finishing assembly area. So, with the new remodel, we'll be able to put all that in one big space, and that will uh, really optimize our assembly systems. And then it gives us a lot more room downstairs, so now I can add a couple more machines, spread out a little bit in the downstairs area, which is going to help as we bring on more designs. That's kind of been my uh, plan for the last 5, 6 years. Of course, we started off doing collaborations with large companies. Then we decided that we were going to keep the deadlock to ourselves. We tried doing an OEM project with that, which was already in the process with like the mud knives and the dauntless. So we were having somebody else manufacture those for us, and we're just running into problems. There's always issues when you're having somebody else make parts for you. Uh, so that's when we decided, we're just going to do this on our own. We're going to build our own company, manufacturing capabilities. So we started hiring employees and building machine or buying machines. and that's been a 5-ish year project. Just trying to get that to where it all runs, and we're making knives every month, and then I would be able to go back to designing. So we're right on the cusp of that, where the shop's running real smooth. I've got 13 employees now, and all the machines. So going forward, you'll see a lot more new designs from Hawk Knives, um, as I'm able to start focusing on design again.
That's actually really that's pretty exciting. So I think that's a smart trajectory for you as a knife maker, as a designer, and now as a manufacturer, just to do it just sort of the classic way, which is keep everything under one roof. You can control the output and the input in a lot of cases, and really just focus on what you do best, which is the mechanisms and the designing. So when you're saying more designs or current designs. So right now, just to catch up for everybody, how many current models or designs are we looking at right now that you're making?
So right now we only have the two. So we've got the deadlock and then the shortcut. And I really love the shortcut. I don't know how long I'll make that. It was, there was two reasons for making that. One is, I need to design something that we can just make and we can pump it out every month. I don't have to sharpen. I don't have to grind bevels. We can just make these things. And it was also, I was so bored. Like I've been making deadlocks for almost 9 years now. I started off doing more custom stuff, but it's been a constant. Like we make a batch, redesign, make a batch, redesign. So creatively, I've just been focusing on the deadlock, redesigning and engineering that, and I just wanted to think about something else. Like it was just time, and so that's kind of where the shortcut came in. It's a unique, interesting mechanism. It's a new design. Got me away from the deadlock for a little bit, so it was like a vacation from that.
One might say a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly. It was a shortcut. And yeah, well, and which was kind of part of the reason we named it that is because I don't have to sharpen these things and I don't have to grind the blades, so it is kind of a shortcut to making a knife, and so that's great. And the demand has been fantastic. So we are going to make quite a few of them. I just don't know how long I'll keep making that. I really want to get back into just folders in general, specifically the Hawk Lock system. So that's the next design, Hawk Lock version of a flipper, and yeah, I'm definitely ready to get back to creating new mechanisms and new designs. That's what I've been doing since I was 12. I started making designing knives with my dad as a kid, and we were pumping out 3, sometimes 4 new designs every single year, and then licensing those to manufacturers, of course. Then the deadlock came around, and then it's just been 8 or 9 years of just deadlocks, um, which has been fantastic because the deadlock has really it's built the whole business, and now we have all these capabilities and machines and employees. So yeah, now I have a full shop. I can manufacture anything, and that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna start coming up with new ideas. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. I definitely I can see the shortcut being the transition. Like you get a little break from the deadlock, and then really what you do is you actually get a taste for a whole new process, a whole new machining, a whole new assembly, and then you're like, okay, like this is great. Let's do more of this, which is good for your artistic muscle to sort of flex that and get into stuff. Now, the deadlock has been right as you say, sort of company building, and I would certainly say, from my perspective, as a knife person and a dealer, certainly, I mean, the deadlock seems to have been a commercial success for you, and also I would say that the deadlock was your transition from sort of knife maker, knife designer to like front and center in the spotlight, like definitely part of the upper echelon of the knife industry as far as visuals and demand goes, because the demand for the Deadlock is unstoppable. I mean, people love it, different variations of it. So, I mean, I definitely see the Deadlock as sort of a legacy for you. So, I mean, I hear that you're saying maybe transition out of the Deadlock. Will it continue to be something that you produce over the years, or do you care to comment on that?
Um, I I don't know what would happen if I quit making deadlocks. I would probably start getting hate mail, maybe some death threats.
Okay.
So I don't foresee stopping the deadlock.
Okay.
There was a point where I thought, I was going to make a little bit cheaper version of it, and
Hmm.
make a lot more of them. And come to find out, it's a tricky knife to make at any type of materials.
Hmm.
So we had that moment where we started making Model Cs out of aluminum, and it was just as hard as making out of titanium. So it really wasn't the best direction. So we changed directions, went back to making them out of full titanium, and as we started, making fancier versions, the demand just kept increasing. So I kind of see the deadlock. Maybe we'll make fewer of them, but we're just gonna make really nice versions of it, and then start making other stuff. So that way I can keep making those, but I don't have to make as many of them. So that's kind of the strategy right now. Anybody that knows me pretty well knows that I changed my mind quite a bit. So that could all change next week. We'll see.
Sure. Well, no, I mean it's it's good to know sort of a glimpse into the future, right? And then to know where the Deadlock is, because it's certainly an exciting piece that I know a lot of people out there have one and they love it, and there's even more people just getting into it, and they want a piece of the action. Speaking of action, that might be a good transition. So I don't know how anyone would not have heard this, but the Deadlock got a little more famous a little more recently. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we had a interesting opportunity come up, which is about 2.5 years ago now, and this was kind of the catalyst for the Model C. So I had been working on a new version, and I kind of had it laid out, and I had a pretty good idea what I was doing. And I had a random call. Guy calls up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this, little movie. I'd love to, have a deadlock in it." And my original thought was, okay, this guy's doing like an indie film, and I was already sold. I was like, Whatever movie this is, I don't care how big it is. I would love for a deadlock to be in it." And then later he confessed that, okay, this is John Wick 4, and it's gonna
Just a little
be
movie.
just a little movie, right? And this will be John Wick's knife, and we really want to use this. And at the time, I was still making Model Bs, uh, but I was like, well, shoot, by the time this movie comes out, I will have transitioned to the Model C for sure. Um, so I just showed the guys some renderings, some drawings of what I was thinking about on the Model C, and so ultimately the director and the weapon specialist, they liked the look of the Model C better. So it really put a fast track on that project. So in the shop, we stopped all production and we just focused on getting a prototype in their hands. Um, and like those first prototypes, they were made out of aluminum. They were just spray painted, just a real quick and dirty, but it functioned to get it in their hands so they could play with it. They said, "Okay, good. Now we need 10 of these by this date," and I don't remember now. It's like a couple of months. So yeah, we just really focused on, um, getting them all the knives that they needed. Uh, Ultimately, it didn't get used as much as they thought it was going to be used. But it is in the movie. There's a kind of a box scene where Lawrence Fishburne is like presenting John Wick with a box, and it's got a Pit Viper in there, which is the 9 millimeter pistol, and then it has a deadlock in the box, and so that's what's presented to him. And uh, and this is also, it opened up the doors for the Deadlock being in other movies. So I'm not quite ready to announce all that, except that it is going to be featured in more movies coming down the pipeline. So that's super exciting as well. Um, yeah, so it was great. Really, really pushed the development of that knife. It was tough to not tell people, right? Because we had to sign all sorts of NDAs, and we weren't allowed to talk about it until the movie, until the trailers came out. And it was also really cool because we became good friends with Taryn from Taryn Tactical Innovations. So he makes a lot of the guns for the different movies, especially John Wick. And so we've collaborated on our first project, which is a big box, which has the Genesis shotgun in it, and it's got 2 pistols, the knife, and a bunch of the Continental coins. The box, or this trunk rather, it opens up, and you can see all the guns and the knife. And then there's like some drawers that pull out on the sides that have extra magazines. So really cool collaboration. And we have a couple others planned as well. So hopefully those will be coming out later this year. And then I also did my own box set. John Faulkner from TK422, I think is the name of his company. Apparently that's a Star Wars reference of some sort. I don't know if you guys know,
Yeah,
but
I think the TK421 was I forget the exact thing, but I do remember the reference from Star Wars. Yep.
I'm not even gonna lie, like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, somebody pointed out to me at Blade Show, because I had no idea. I was like, that is a interesting name. And they're like, oh, that's the Stormtrooper or something or other. So, anyways, that guy's been great to work with. So he built the trunk boxes for Terran, and he's built box sets for Terran in the past. He's building our box set, which is going to be it's a wooden box. You open it up, and it's got the foam in there with deadlock, a couple of coins, and a bloody pencil. So we're currently making the knives for those, waiting on the boxes. Looks like he's at this moment. So this is June 20th when we're recording this. He's about 2 weeks out before the boxes will start shipping, and then I'll be delivering box sets. And that sale went really well. Pretty impressive on how many boxes we sold. So that was fantastic. So yeah, it was great news all around.
I mean, I think that's pretty awesome. So the movie knife, right? Like, is that? I mean, this is sort of a self-answering question, but did you ever see, like, we started the episode in the '90s when you were a kid making knives, the pony knife, like. Was there an ambition in that kid's head to get to this point where you're like, yeah, I fucking made a switchblade that was in like a major Hollywood motion picture?
Yes and no. So like when we first started making knives, I had no idea what we were doing. I was 12, right? So I didn't even know I wanted to be a knife maker. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do in life, but this was cool at the moment. But as we got into it, and my dad started designing, folding knives and unique mechanisms, we went down that path. We came up with a knife that I always thought should be in a movie. And I just had no idea how to get it in a movie. And that was the ring knife. We later licensed it to Mantis, which started off as, gosh, I don't even remember. Yeah, the Cyclops. Thank you. And then that kind of had some design changes, shrunk down in size, which became the Vicious Circle. But essentially, it's a ring that you wear as a pendant, and you can grab this ring, and as you pull it off, the necklace part stays around your neck, but that like deploys the blade, and then it detaches from the necklace, and then you've got this little hook. And I think my dad designed that when I was about 16, 17. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. All my friends in high school thought it was super cool. I'll still run into old high school pals and they're like, "Oh, whatever happened to that ring knife?" Um, but that one was the one that I was like, this needs to be in a movie. And I think in like 2015, somewhere around there, I had uh, a director or producer reach out and they wanted to use it in a movie. It was going to be the Zorro movie, and they wrote it into the script, and it was like, going to be there, and then the whole project collapsed, and they never made the movie. So I got real close, but now that I'm working with these guys in the movies, there is a movie. They just finished filming it with the ring knife. So that'll be coming out who knows when, but someday that will be on the big screen. So that's
Oh,
super exciting. So that is kind of like,
that's very neat.
at my little kid dream coming true, getting that knife in a movie. And yeah, again, I don't know when it's coming out, but super excited for that.
I feel like I saw that in some movie, not a big movie. Could be a fever dream, but like I feel like I saw that in the movie.
Somebody told me they saw it in a video game. Uh, and then they tried to pull it up and they couldn't find it, but they're like, I've seen that in this game. But I haven't seen it. I did have, this was probably 10, 12 years ago. There was an anime movie that had the ET in it. Um, and it was just like the very last scene. They like bring this box gets delivered, and they open up the box, and they pull out this ET and they start playing with it. So that was super cool. Um,
I actually know
but
exactly what you're talking about. Don't remember the name, but yes.
Nice. I mean, the vicious circle. We've talked about this before. The vicious circle is a very strange object and knife and piece of jewelry. It continues to trickle sale like all the time. Like we have them, I stock them, they sell. It's like it's. I mean, I like it. I'm not saying it's not worthy of the sales. It's just such an interesting piece that I think it's also one of those things in your design catalog where the more people get familiar with your work, I think the more they look to get more objects that you're associated with. And I think the Vicious Circle definitely falls into that category where it is a very affordable piece that Mantis still makes. You can still get them. And it's very achievable. Most dealers probably have them. They're not impossible to find. So it is good to hear that gets a little spotlight time. I think that's a cool one.
yeah, and I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do with that. Uh, I've got a couple of options. Either just have Mantis make them. Maybe I'll make a short run here in the shop. Maybe I'll just like modify some of the ones that Mantis makes. Or maybe I won't do anything at all. I don't really know. The version that's in the movie has a quite a bit different look than the ones you can currently buy. And it's a little bit more jewelry like. Uh, so yeah, we'll just kind of see as we get closer what happens there. I don't want to get distracted too much because I have a lot of other cool designs that I want to make. I generally don't like going back and remaking old designs. I've learned so much over the last, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years, making the deadlock, that it's nice to start from scratch, take all that new knowledge, and then put it into a new design.
Okay.
The orbit is probably one of the exceptions to that. It's just a very popular design. We didn't really make that many of them, and and it does use that hawk lock, and of course Surge is constantly calling me up and asking me when I'm going to make more orbits, as well as emails and customers. So that's one of the very few designs that I'll be bringing back.
Okay.
Um, and it won't be exactly the same. We're going to make it a little bit bigger, you know, um, add a couple new twists to it, just because there is more knowledge, there's more expertise, and so we'll go ahead and incorporate that into the new version.
Gotcha. So that dovetails nicely. I was going to ask you. So you're expanding into this manufacturing realm with new ideas. You have an immense design catalog of previous mechanisms, but it sounds like sort of what it is what it is, and so you really just want to move forward. So we shouldn't expect to see necessarily the classics rerun. It sounds like you're just going to start fresh with new mechanisms based on new knowledge.
Yeah, and I might clarify a little bit. Like, I'll probably take old mechanisms and then
Hmm.
throw those into a new design. So,
Oh,
right,
okay.
like
All right.
the hawk lock is an old mechanism, but I'll be doing new designs based around that mechanism.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there'll probably be other mechanisms that will work, rework a little bit, and then add a new design element to it. And it's hard to say because I can't do everything at once unless my shop really expands. Um, so we'll just kind of see how that goes. If I start making orbits and this new hawk lock and sales are great, then maybe I'll build another shop and we'll just keep making each of these designs and just keep adding to it, or we may have to cut out older stuff as we bring on new stuff. So it's really hard to say how that looks in the future.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
that's
it's
what we've got to all stay tuned for is the future
that's right.
to see how it goes. That's the trick. Um,
I was trying to find a window to talk about this. I don't think we spoke about this in the last recording with you. How did the relationship with Mantis start? Because like it's not they made quite a bit of your pieces over the years.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we started with the ring knife, the Cyclops. And so, we had designed that knife again when I was like 16, 17. It was one of our first designs. And, we showed it to Buck, we showed it to Gerber, Kershaw. Everybody loved it. Like, oh, that's super cool. But that doesn't really fit with the knives that we make. It doesn't fit in our product line. Obviously, it'd be hard to imagine Buck making, the Vicious Circle or the Cyclops. And then we ran into Jared at a shot show. Jared was running Mantis at that time, and he loved it, and it fit with his lineup really well. Um, so yeah, he's like, cool, let's make it, let's go for it. And for us, we'd been shopping that around for years. We'd show it to every company that would look at it, and they all just passed on it, and it fit his line. He was really excited about it. So that's how we went down that path with him.
nice. I mean, I guess that sometimes it takes shopping something around a little bit just to find the right fit, and then when you find the right fit, that's also really key. Um, as I said, it's been a long running. So what approximate year do you think that deal was made with Mantis?
Oh yeah, that's must have been over 10 years ago. Yeah, roughly 10, 12 years ago. And yeah, the sales have been good on it. Um, the first version, the Cyclops, um, they worked okay, but they weren't perfect, and that was shared responsibility between us as designers and Mantis at the time. I think it had a liner lock on it. Couple other weird things about it. So we went back to the design table and redesigned it with a new locking mechanism, uh, improved the deployment system, and then they started manufacturing those. Uh, and they've had a delay. I mean, well, the last couple of years have been tricky making anything in China with COVID and all that. So there's been a delay in product on that end. Mantis has a new supplier in China that they're working with that's making really good stuff. So we're just now getting new shipments of the new versions. Um, I just saw a couple prototypes at Blade Show this year. Um, so they'll be introducing kind of a refined, newer version of those.
Oh wow, that's exciting. Okay, that's pretty neat indeed. Huh. All right. So yeah, I mean the vicious circle just keeps coming full circle. So
Right.
that's pretty neat. Yeah, right. Okay, all right. So the vicious circle is just as like a to bring sort of a wrap to that part. So do you still have other design collaborations that are still in production with other companies that are out there?
Yes. So
Select
currently we
Select Fire, right?
yeah, so currently we have, I think, just the Select Fire. Um, there's there's the Marksman that Buck makes, and they'll do like little sprint runs of that, but it's technically out of their catalog at this point. But the Select Fire has been our best selling, best money making collaboration we've ever done, um, which is kind of interesting for us because there wasn't a real patent on it. Um, it's a liner lock, and it's got some tools on it. Really interesting, cool knife. But everything else that we've designed has intellectual property attached to it. And the Select Fire is just a design. It's just a liner lock, and it turned out to be the best selling one we've ever done. And that knife has had consistent sales since almost day one. It took a little bit to pick up some steam, and then it's just been going year after year. Every single quarter, that knife just sells.
Wow. That's really neat. You sent me one. I have it. It's you wouldn't put your hands on it and go, "Oh yeah, this is Gavin's knife." It's definitely not it's not one of those. It's not one of those, but it is actually very practical because it's got a socket on it. So I mean it's very useful, but it's definitely not a mechanical contrivance by any means. But it's very practical. It's a very useful thing to have around. Um, hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. Okay. So still doing, but for the foreseeable future, it's all in-house stuff. You're keeping your designs to yourself. So don't start emailing Gavin about that.
That's right. Like we don't have any plans currently to do any collaborations. And that's a little bit dependent on what I come up with. But right now, all my designs, I'm focusing on stuff that we're gonna make in house. If there's something that's really hard to make in our shop, and and it would work really well for a large manufacturer, maybe, but it's definitely not the goal.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think that's good. I mean, it takes a lot of time to come up with these mechanisms, designs. You might as well execute it exactly as you see fit in your mind's eye. That's I see that as logical. I mean, why let someone else have the fun when you could torture yourself for a million hours trying to make it? That's total.
that that's right. Yeah.
That's
Well, and like, I mean, you said it perfectly. Like, you lose so much control over the design when you give it to a manufacturer. Because they have to make it work in their world, so they need to make it easier to manufacture. They need to get that price point down. They're going to sell it to the masses, and so it's kind of a watered down version of what we would do. And our market has grown a lot over the last few years because of the deadlock, and we're kind of in this high end production world. I don't even really know what to call ourselves these days because um, we're making really high end production knives, um, but it's not really a production knife. So it's like this new category almost. You and I have talked about it before, like what to call that, what to say, and I still haven't come up with anything. It feels awkward to say production knife because that brings up kind of the wrong image in people's
yeah,
minds.
definitely. It's
And
a
I
different
can
connotation for sure.
Yeah, but that's what we're making really high end productions, low numbers, and using premium materials, and obviously complicated mechanisms and such. Um, but I'm really gonna lean into that world because that's what I really like. I like the whole process of what we're doing, um, and now I get to even enjoy it more by coming up with a whole bunch of new designs and making cool stuff. So I feel like I'm right where I've always wanted to be, totally in control, a shop that can make things that I'm in charge of, and then I get to focus on designing things.
That's awesome. Okay. I mean, I think that's it. I think that's what everybody is sort of striving for in their own little niche of life or knife making or whatever is just being in a spot where they can sort of deep breathe and look at their setup and go, this process is good. Things are moving. Like it's a nice flow state. And, if you come up with an idea, you can manifest that idea in a reasonable amount of time, in an efficient manner. And I think that's an exciting future for you. I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to whatever comes down the pipe from Hawk, because yeah, it's looking pretty bright, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. It's this is the dream spot. Just I can, yeah, make any design. We can prototype it quickly, put it into production, and that's that whole process is what I like. Making the same thing, year after year. Um, it's tough. It's not really in my DNA. Like that's not how I was designed to be. Um, but I've hired some really good people, and once something's up and running, like they can kind of take it over and they can make sure everything's being produced correctly. I'm still at like the helm of everything, so I'm like, I'm steering the ship, but I get to let other people figure out all the details and help keep this all running.
I get it. That's my favorite part as well. The first, as I say, 25%, the R&D stage and the setup stage, and then like somewhere 3/4 down the line is just the fine tuning the process. Once I figure out the whole thing, I'm like, okay, I want to do something next, but then you still have to do what pays the bills.
Right. Well, and people always ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite knife?" And my answer is always the newest. It's the new one. That my favorite is the one that I'm working on right now.
I forgot who said the words. Some show would ask him, what's your favorite knife? The one that paid the bills today.
Right.
Sure. I mean, yeah, to a point that definitely that works. Whatever you've got in your pocket is the best knife, and if not that, it's whichever one is the consistent seller, because that is equally as important. If you can't sell the knives, then you can't keep designing them forever and come up with cool shit all the time. So
Right.
that's crucial.
And and in my case, it's the deadlock. As far as that criteria, like deadlock pays the bills. I mean, that's what's funding this whole operation. It's buying the machines and paying the employees and expanding. So the deadlock has been a godsend. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that knife is really, and that's the thing, not to dwell on that subject, but I've gotten into it with a couple people, as selling the deadlock, and they're like, "Oh, well, blah blah blah, production knife, custom knife." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, it's hard to have that conversation with every single person, but I'm like, if you want to call it a production knife, sure, but I mean, like, it's not. Yeah, it's like super high in production to the point where, like, I don't know. It's I still consider a lot of the deadlock to be semi-custom, just because there's so much that goes into it, and I know we've had conversations about, um, just building the knife. It's not just slapped together. It is rather complicated, and it deserves its own attention. It deserves its own spotlight for that.
Sure, it's like saying Lamborghini is a production car. So right, they've got a production shop, and they're making X amount of them. But it's not a production car. It's not a Kia or something.
No, not at all. Like, exactly. That's the thing. It's not high production. I forget. I'm sure I'll get yelled at this, but I forget what the numbers are. But there are, especially when it comes to cars, there are a specific number of cars that have to be produced to consider it a road car, or like a shed car. There are numbers that company has to do, and I think what you're doing right is, I think it is technically sort of not high production, but it's high quality, low production. Like, more like almost like a Hennessy or like a Koenigsegg or something like that, where it's like, yeah, there is a team of people building these things, but there are very, very few of them built, and each one is sort of special in its own right. And at any minute, that could change, and that's something that really that gets me when people are talking about knives. Is they're like, well, yeah, of course, and I'm like, if you only knew what was behind the curtain of any of the deadlock or really any custom knife or production knife, I'm like, at any minute this could all fall apart. Like just having this thing in your hand is the first amazing step. Like it shouldn't exist given all of life's issues and manufacturing issues that come at a company or a person. Like the odds are very much against anybody doing this thing. So the fact that these items get into people's hands, phenomenal. It's great.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean
say,
it takes.
sorry, I would
Go
say it
for it.
is a production knife, but the problem is with saying the word production knife is the connotations that come with it because people think $100 knife. At the end of the day, a Rolex is a production watch. They make 1 million units a year, but just because it's a production watch doesn't mean it's a cheap watch. It's a watch made to the highest, utmost quality of what it is. You guys make one. You have the key one you guys always make with the carbon fiber inlay. You guys make it in the production atmosphere, but it's the highest form of what that OTF could be. I just know the word connotations with saying the word production.
Yeah,
If
and
that
like
makes
it's
sense.
never going to be a mass production knife. Like it just uh it's it's not possible to scale the deadlock. I still have companies that approached me like, "Oh, we'll make this and we'll make, a $500 version and
Ugh.
yada yada." It's like there's no way you could make it. Like
Yeah.
you can't make this knife in that realm. It's just not possible. There's so much hand fitting, and it took me forever to get my assembly guys trained to solve the problems, because they're unique problems, but it's like the same outcome. So like, okay, so the knife's a little bit sticky. Well, there's 100 different things can make it sticky, and so finding somebody that has the ability to critically go through that and figure out what little part is making it sticky is that's tough. It's tough to train for that, and you can't just make thousands of parts and expect them to all fall together. It takes a highly skilled assembly person to put these knives together.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think when it certainly comes to the deadlock, and I think automatics or certainly OTFs specifically, uh, I think that the bottleneck is probably always going to be in assembly. I mean, certainly machining and parts, but I think it's from talking to people, assembly is a pretty it's a pretty tricky thing. Um, just because you have the parts doesn't mean everybody can just put this stuff together.
yeah, and we're holding really tight tolerances. My machinist that works for me, he worked in an aerospace place for a while, and he's always telling me that in the aerospace industry, the parts that he was making there don't have as tight of tolerances as we're trying to hold on a knife. Um, and that crosses over to other folding knives. Like things have to be surface ground to pretty exacting tolerances. But with the deadlock, it's just almost every part has to be held to really tight tolerances, and even then, it has to be hand fit to make it function perfectly.
Yeah, I've been to a shop. You have the same part, 10 different iterations with it in very slightly different diameters. There's so many parts, so many tolerance stackups.
Yeah, and I mean that's the only way I could figure out how to make this thing is to have different parts. So you put it together, that doesn't work. Okay, now you try this one. It's a little bit different size. You kind of swap things around until you hit that sweet spot. Um, and yeah, it's not and that's why I don't think it'll ever be a production knife, is because you can't just make 1,000 parts and assemble it. You have to make 5,000 of this one part of different sizes so that you can swap it around until it yeah, you hit that sweet spot. So very complicated knife. And like I said earlier, we're going to be moving into a little bit higher range for the deadlock. making more exotic versions, higher end stuff, and then slowly start bringing on different knives so that we can really utilize what I've built with all the space we have and employees and cool machines, um, and again as we grow, like we'll be getting new capabilities and new machining centers, which then means that I can design based upon the tools that I have, which will just only increase how cool the designs can get.
So for the first, do you have a model name for this newest design, I should say, that is based off the hawk lock?
No, I'm terrible at coming up with names. So I generally put that off to the very last minute. Um, I think what I might do, I've been kind of throwing this idea around in my head, doing like a contest and like maybe in my Facebook group, the G&G Hawk group, uh, have people come up with ideas, and whoever's name we pick will give them a knife or do something cool. Um,
Oh, that'd be
because yeah,
fun.
coming up with names is tough.
Hmm. All right. Well, that's I don't that's something to look forward to. That actually jogged my memory on a question. Uh, where is Grant at with the book? I don't remember if that. Where's the book?
Yeah, so the book is so close.
Okay.
He's been giving he's been giving copies to friends and letting them kind of read it and give feedback.
Okay.
Um, so the majority of the editing has been done. He's been working on like the cover design and the back design. Um, it is really, really close. And when I was pushing this whole project, because I was pushing him for years to write this book, and my initial thoughts were like, okay, this will be cool. Like we'll write this book. It'll give some history about who my dad is and who we are as knife designers, and it'll just be cool to have that information out there, and people can read this knife. Uh, Hardcore knife enthusiasts will really dig it, and they'll appreciate it, and maybe it'll help boost knife sales a little bit. And I waited a long time before I read the book. I waited until he had like a beginning to an end, so I could read it all the way through. And I read it, and I was like, holy cow! Like this is a really good book. Uh, and so kind of my perspective on it has changed a lot. Like this is not just a sales uh, um, ploy, right? It's not just like this isn't going to be used just to sell more knives. Like this is a good standalone book all by itself. Um, so it's going to be interesting how I think it'll do really well in the knife community, um, but outside of the knife community, I think it's also going to do really well, because my dad has such an interesting story, and some people will look at him and be like, oh, I bet he has a cool story, but they have no idea, right? Like it's so interesting. And my dad's taken almost 3 years to write this book, and it's because he's a perfectionist in all things that he does. And so he really as he says, he's only going to write one book, so he wants it to be a really good one. And
Fair.
so
Totally fair. Yeah.
uh, and I think he has. Like I'm
Hmm.
really excited to have people start reading this book and get the feedback. And we'll start the first printing of this. We're gonna do like a hardbound, really nice version of this book. Um, After that, it's hard to say. We'll probably do a paper book, or maybe we'll keep it kind of a high end hardcover. Um, but a lot of those details have to be figured out. But at least
Sure.
this first printing is just going to be a really nice version.
Well, that's awesome. I don't know. We've obviously we've mentioned this in previous recordings. And I am excited. I've met your dad a couple times. He's definitely a character. I'm very much looking forward to reading it. I'm sure he'll finally reveal that he's DB Cooper in there, which I'm just waiting for. Um, but yeah, no, it's okay. I'm excited. I think that's a good right first edition. That's important. Hardcover, sign them and stuff. I'll throw my name in the hat for first edition. Absolutely. Uh, and yeah, I assumed just like would be the trend that you guys will be probably self-publishing this, I assume.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Nice.
Uh, yeah. So we're or he. It's been his project. I've
Sure.
been helping when I can, but it's really his project, and he's been working with a local printing company, and getting pricing and stuff like that. Trying to figure out just the mechanics of it. Where to put the pictures, that kind of stuff. But we're getting really close, and he's got some just other cool ideas for it. Uh, I I don't know if I should share this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Uh, Hopefully, this actually comes through. But uh, he's always been a fan of like you take a like a little notebook. And you draw like a little picture in the corner, and then the next page you draw another picture, and you just kind of keep going through, and each picture's a little bit different. And you can flick it, right? And as you flick it, you'll see like the image dance or move. Uh, so he had this cool idea of taking some of the knives that we've designed, and have them like open and close so that you can, like the ET, for instance, is such an interesting, unique mechanism. And so yeah, you'd be able to like fan the corners of the pages, and you would see the ET opening and closing, um, which I thought was neat. He approached me about it. He's like, "Do you think that's too corny?" And I was like, "That is perfect. Like that is so cool." Um, so I'm pretty sure that's going to work its way into the book. Maybe a couple other mechanisms as well. But it's just, and I guess I bring that up like he's just so innovative in anything that he does, and I've never really seen that before. And I think in a lot of books it would be super corny and it wouldn't really fit. But in something like this, where there's at least one chapter that's really dedicated towards knives, and it's one of the bigger chapters. Um, I don't know, it just kind of ties the whole thing together, and yeah, I think it'll be really neat.
That's awesome. Okay. A little bit closer every time we talk. So that's definitely another thing to look forward to. And I assume even so it's your dad's book, but I assume uh we'll all or the knife community will get through your newsletter, I imagine, get updated or through the Facebook, or is it something that is separate entirely?
Yeah, you're right. So we'll throw it out through our newsletter. So that first edition, we'll probably take some pre-orders just to kind of get a feel of how big this first production run will be. Um, Obviously, the more you buy, the better pricing you can get. But I don't want to get stuck with 10,000 copies of this book sitting around. So yeah, we'll do some type of pre-sale through the newsletter, and I suspect that dealers will probably want to carry it. Um, and yeah, we're just kind of play it by ear. It's a totally different world for us, but it's a really cool story, and it really ties in well with what we're doing.
That's awesome. I'm pumped. That's very cool. Okay. Everybody keep an eye out on the newsletter. Which is basically, to be fair, the newsletter is where everyone should be signed up anyway, right? On your website to get all news pertaining to you, the knives, the book, etc.
That's right. So, I really utilize that for all of our sales. Any important information is put out through that newsletter. So, if you want the information first, or you want to be able to purchase direct um, for any new project or any new deadlock versions, the newsletter is where you have to do that.
Nice. Okay. All right. And just the website, just in case.
Website is hawkknifedesigns.com, and you go there, and it's pretty easy to get to the link for signing up for the newsletter.
Killer. Okay. All right. That's awesome. What when are we? What's the next show? So you're kind of sticking to the Blade show, the main three right now.
That's right. So I'm just going to do the three Blade shows as of now. They're spaced out really well for me, um, and we've been having amazing shows at all three of them. and so yeah, that's been working out great. Again, it gives me a lot of space in between, so I'm not always just stressed out trying to get ready for a show. And so the next one is in Salt Lake. I believe that's in October. I'm not totally sure, but with any luck, we'll have at least some prototypes of the new design that has yet to be named. That's kind of that's the goal, to at least have a handful of prototypes for that show. And again, that'll be all be announced through the newsletter.
Gotcha. Okay. Everybody sign up for that newsletter if you aren't uh already. Um the Wick box sets, so they're being made. Is that it? If you missed out, you missed out. Are there going to be extras available?
So I have a few extras, and I've had a few people drop off. So I have like a secondary list for the filling, for the spaces that people have dropped off, and then I have some allotted for dealers. So if you can't get it direct from us, you will be able to buy them through some dealers. But we just did one run, and that's all we're making, and then we'll be back to regular Deadlock production.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, that's exciting. People should keep an eye out for that. If you missed the box, it sounds like you might be a small redemption chance to get another one. Is there another drop you're doing between now and Salt Lake that people should keep an eye out for, or is that's top secret? Got to sign up for the newsletter.
Uh, yeah. So, kind of my plan right now. I'm I'm really dependent on the boxes showing up. Uh, so I have been building John Wick knives so that we've been stockpiling those so that once we do get boxes, we can start shipping a bunch. Uh, but just with everything, there's, I'll run out of DLC parts, or we'll run out of this and I can't do that build, but the show's got to go on. Like, I've got a whole crew. Everybody's got to keep working. So my plan is to do a couple just small drops in between of some special versions. They'll be a little bit different than my previous drops. Normally, what we do, I'll have like one or two uh, versions, take deposits on those, and we'll start making them. With this will be like a little boutique drop. Uh, it'll be very few knives, but they'll already be built. Maybe there'll be quite a variety, so maybe there'll be like 5 or 6 versions, but there's only 2 or 3 of each. Um, and a lot of that is just going to be like, okay, I've got you know this much fat carbon, and I've got this many handles. Let's turn them into knives, and then that will be kind of the mini drop. So we will do a couple of those before Salt Lake.
Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, that's dope. Okay. And that is definitely that's a great reason to be on that newsletter. Okay. Because then that's the spice in between the shows that keeps the bread together in the sandwich. All right. I dig it. I dig it. All right. Gavin, is there something that we haven't touched on that you wanted to go over?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered just about everything. I guess, as a recap, we've got the John Wick knives. We've got shortcuts that we're doing. We'll probably I'll be finishing that first drop here probably in the next couple of months, and then we'll do another drop of those as well. Um, then, of course, the new knife, we'll be doing a drop on that. I am going to do the shortcuts a little bit different. I get people asking me all the time when the next drop is. They want to get on it. Uh, with the shortcut, it's a little bit lower price range, and people have been a little bit less patient with those. We did run into a couple hiccups that we've solved now. Uh, but instead of doing a drop before I have knives, I'm gonna wait until the knives are pretty much finished, and then we'll do a drop so that people are getting their knives much quicker. Um, so a little bit different than taking a deposit and waiting 3 or 4 months before you get your knife. We'll be doing a drop, and the knives will be shipping almost instantly. So there's So there will be another shortcut drop sometime before Salt Lake, probably, hopefully, possibly.
Probably. I like it. Okay. That's the definitive thing that people tune in for right there.
That's right.
Most likely, probably, possibly. Yeah. No, that's okay. And I would say bravo to that, because I know it can be troublesome with the wait times. We live in an instant gratification century here, so people want things now. So it is smart to trim that timeline a little bit, so people can get that quick gratification that they so desire. And that can be tricky with pre-orders. Okay, so you've actually, to be fair, you have a lot going on, which is exciting. So the good recap. There's a lot to look forward to. Multiple drops between here and Salt Lake. My closing question: the piece that Jake was working on at Blade Show, where's that gonna go? The engraved piece.
So that'll be our auction piece at Blade Show in Salt Lake.
Okay.
And it's a little bit different than the last two versions that he's done. This one, there are no inlays, so I just made a handle and a cover with no inlay pockets, so he has a lot more room to play around with. And I also kind of sent him in a new direction with the theme, and I think that's really cool. So he's doing a hawk skeleton. So there's like a hawk skull, and then this kind of a skeleton of it and then some like feathers that come off of it. So that's really cool. So that's going to be interesting. There's a couple sneak peek pictures on my Instagram, which is just Hawk Knives. So you can kind of see what he was working at the show, which is another thing I really like about Jake, is that he does the engraving at shows. Obviously he does, some at home, but he's also selling the engraving setup. So at the shows, he's there, he's showing the equipment, but he's also engraving deadlocks. And so that's been really cool to add that element, so people get to like walk by and see Jake working and see him working on deadlocks. So that's been a really cool collaboration working with him. So Salt Lake, we'll have that knife available.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. It definitely, I saw him working on it. It looks pretty dope. That's a good direction. I like the classic filigree, looks good, but the new sort of hawk skeleton is pretty neat. So definitely look forward to seeing that in person in Salt Lake City, which will be Blade Show West, where we can catch up with all of Gavin's work. Definitely think about coming out to that show if you're local or otherwise. It'll certainly be worth traveling to in Utah, and we will make sure to confirm the dates and check out Blade Show West, and make sure to check out Gavin's website, subscribe to the newsletter, hit up his Instagram, keep up to date with all the news that's fit to be put out there. Awesome. Gavin, thank you so much for coming on. I think this is podcast number 3. Maybe it's number 4. I think it's number 3.
Yeah, this is number 3.
Number 3,
which is fantastic. I appreciate you guys having me on over the years, and it's pretty nice to have the timeline and the kind of the evolution of things, kind of the historic data here put into a podcast. So that's really awesome. So I'm super appreciative of you guys for doing that.
Right on. Thanks for recognizing it. That's exactly why we're doing it. Yeah. Cool. All right, everybody. Stay tuned for more Bladeology. We're on a roll. We're gonna keep this going, and we'll see you folks at a knife show soon. Thank you so much. I'm signing off. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. To find out more about your guests and hosts, myself, Jeremiah Burbank, check out the website pvk.com. Established in 1994. We've been selling knives on the internet for an awfully long time. Or shoot me an email at bladeologypodcast@gmail.com, or on Instagram at pvk.lasvegas, or info@pvk.com. Nick Chuprin can be found on Instagram at NCCKnives or at his website, nccKnives.com, or you can shoot him an email at contact@nccKnives.com. Mr. Gavin Hawk can be found on Instagram at Hawk Knives, which is HAWKKNIVES, or at his website, hawkknifedesigns.com, where you can sign up for that newsletter to keep up to date with all the news that's fit to print to your email inbox. Or better yet, check out his Facebook group, G&G Hawk Knives.